Hello, hello, everyone. We've got quite a show for you today. So it's time for my RPG show, I guess. And originally, we were supposed to have a pretty short show, which we're still going to have. And there's not a lot of RPGs that I think really, in a short amount of time, just grab you and suck you in. But Final Fantasy Legend is one of those, and I have probably one of the people that if you watch RPG speedruns, it's a name that you think real quick. So I've got Puexel with me, and he's going to show us Final Fantasy Legend on the Game Boy.
Well, not just Final Fantasy Legend, but the Final Fantasy Legend, as they pretentiously called the English version of this game when it came out in 1990, after the '89 Japanese release as Makai Toshi Saga. Yeah, if anybody's ever heard of Saga Frontier, Romancing Saga, Saga Scarlet Grace, this game was actually the very first in that series, and it was just renamed to Final Fantasy when it was released outside Japan in order to help boost sales.
And it's a good thing that it did, because we got 2 more out of it. Mm-hmm. So, a couple of quick announcements, and then I'm just going to pass the mic, and you get to... You're the showrunner today, Puexel, after this.
All right, just let me know.
Absolutely. So we've got a new Super Mario Brothers Relay. It's going to be happening tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. So wait for 3 hours and then wait a full day, and then you can watch some new Super Mario Brothers happening right here. Also, prize submissions for SGDQ are open. Head over to gamesdonequick.com for more info and any info about our upcoming marathon. It's going to be great. You definitely want to get involved. And just as a reminder, subscriptions and bits support shows like this. Thank you all so much. I hope that you enjoy the show. Puexel, I've never heard of you. Tell me about you. Tell me about this game that you're running.
Okay. Well, I'm Puexel. I mainly specialize in running retro console JRPGs like some of the Final Fantasy series and Chrono Trigger. And today I'll be doing a run of the first Final Fantasy Legend game on Game Boy. Category is going to be any % no saw skill. I'll get into what that means exactly as we get going. But I guess we go ahead and ready to go then?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'll let you know when to start too. I start after naming my character. Alright, so normally when you think about Japanese role-playing games or JRPGs, you normally think about kind of an epic quest to save the world and defeat evil. Well, this game's a little different, because instead of our village, starting with our village getting destroyed and us going to get revenge on the evil army or god or goddess that did it, we're just going to go on a fun little adventure. We're going to go on an adventure to climb a tower that supposedly leads to paradise, but that no one's ever returned to. And then there's 3 different races you can play as in this game: humans, mutants, and monsters. And we'll be seeing all 3 of those in this run, at least briefly. So I'm going to pick a Red Bull, which is one of the monster types, for my starter character. And then, alright, and then we will get going in 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so the first thing I do after starting is to build a full party. I'm going to recruit 2 other albatrosses, which is another type of monster, and then a female mutant, whose weapon I'm immediately taking off to speed up a couple menus. And even though our goal is to climb this tower, the front door of the tower is actually locked right now. It's sealed by a black sphere that we need to find. So we need to do a series of quests in order to find that sphere. And we need to basically find a sword, armor, and shield belonging to a statue of a hero, and then return those pieces of equipment to the statue in order to find the sphere. And another very important thing too, is that this game, because of how old it is, it uses a very simplistic pseudo-random number generator that's actually makes it fairly easy to manipulate battle outcomes. So the whole game isn't going to be manipulated like that, but for about the first 12 minutes, I'm going to be kind of manipulating the battles to kind of follow a fixed script and give me the same results. And the main reason for doing that is actually coming up very soon too, because I said that there's 3 different races you can play as, and then for monsters in particular, they level up when you eat meat dropped by other monsters that you defeat. And whether you get encounters with monsters that you want meat from, and then whether you get the meat drop is normally a big source of randomness. But for this very first meat drop that I want to get, I'm going to be manipulating it. So I actually forced an encounter outside the castle, and then that gives me this Red Bull encounter coming in here. And then it's also going to guarantee that I get the meat drop. So this is a 2-round fight here. Right, and then in addition to giving me wings, eating the Red Bull meat also evolves one of my albatrosses into a slime, which is a monster family that we're going to be seeing a lot of over the course of the run. Because slimes all have an ability called Melt, which in addition to doing fairly good damage, also ignores certain types of enemy defense and also heals the slime based on the amount of damage dealt. And that's really, really nice for fighting bosses, because if you have enough melt charges, then you pretty much can't die. I'm gonna pass on skeleton meat because it's too high in bone marrow. Okay, I'm being really careful in this room just because even though I'm manipulating the battle outcomes right now, I can't manipulate the movement patterns of these soldiers, and if one of them tags me, then that's a big problem. But I got through. So to get the king's sword, the first quest item we need, we actually fight the king who has it. Because kind of the story of this first world is that the 3 treasures we're looking for are held by these feuding kings. And how we get each of them varies considerably, because in order to get the sword, we actually have to commit an act of regicide here and actually kill the king. Alright, so we've got the sword.
I suppose that killing the king would make the future kings more willing to work with you.
Mm-hmm. Especially when I have need of their weaponry. Alright, so that's actually a big sigh of relief to get past get past this castle without having to break the RNG manipulation because of getting bumped by one of those guards. That's a very common reset point in PB attempts. Alright, so now that we have the sword, the next item we're going to be going for is the armor. And to get that one, I guess the king that has the armor already knows that we mean business and isn't going to put up a fight, but is instead actually going to send us on a fetch quest to rescue his fiancée who got kidnapped by bandits. Fortunately, we don't actually have to go talk to the king and find out about the quest in order to do it, so I'm just heading straight for the bandits' hideout right now. Yeah, and again, getting kind of fairly fast runaways from all these encounters is, again, being manipulated. The manipulation route goes through about the first 12 minutes or so of the run, and then after that, the dynamics are going to change pretty significantly. Okay, and then this particular zombie right here, I just know if I tried to run away, it would take forever, and it would also lead to me getting some bad battle outcomes afterwards, so I'm just fighting it. Now we're going to be introduced to just one of the things that's just made me fall in love with this game, even though I didn't actually play it as a kid, and that's just the weirdness and wackiness. Because if you guessed that the leader of the bandits that kidnapped the king's fiancée is a poisonous frog, you'd be correct. So this kind of, it's not, I guess I'd just call it a mini boss, has a special skill that can poison you if you melee attack it, but that's not really a problem. And then I use its meat drop in order to evolve my other albatross into an Oni, which is one of the goblin family of monsters. We're not going to be using the Oni for very long, but it's an upgrade to the albatross that's going to come in handy for the next couple required fights. Alright, so now that we've defeated the bandit leader, we're going to head to the Armor King's castle and collect our reward. Because it's nice that we still get the armor even though we didn't actually get promised it in the first place. I'm sure the Armor King already caught word of what happened to the Sword King for not making with the goods. These guys randomly move too, but fortunately if I bump into one of them it just means a text box. It doesn't mean a fight or any other negative impact. You want the armor? You got it. Alright, so that's 2 of the hero's treasures in hand. The only one we still need is the shield. If we'd have actually gone to the Shield King's castle earlier, he would have been very rude to us and kicked us out, but emboldened by our success with the other kings, we're gonna go pay Shield King a visit now. But there's drama in the Shield Kingdom where the king has actually been murdered by the steward. And the steward's going to attempt to frame us, but that's not going to end too well for him. And again, my best interpretation of what skeleton meat actually is bone marrow, which again, not too interested in. Alright, and now we get a snappy put-down line. It's after the fight. Well, quote-unquote fight. You're scum, you make me sick.
That's
1990 localization. Alright, so I'm going to stay at the inn, which, in addition to recovering my health, also recovers my skill uses for my monsters, which is very important. Alright, so we put the 3 items on the statue and then get the black sphere. But we get introduced now to the first of the 4 fiends in this game, because hey, it's Final Fantasy, at least a name, so we gotta have 4 fiends. And the fiends in this game are actually based on Chinese mythology, I believe on a set of constellations. The first fiend is Genbu, also known as the Black Tortoise. And this is where having that slime really helps too, just because Genbu has a shield attack called Shell, but the slime's melt skill can get through that. Alright, and that is the first fiend down. Okay. Just wanted to check my health at that point, just because for reasons I don't fully understand yet, other than just retro games got a retro game, the RNG manipulation might go 2 different directions during that fight as far as who Genbu attacks on the 3rd turn, but it went the way I wanted it to as far as the Oni taking the hit. Alright, and with that, we got the black sphere, and I used it to break the seal remotely, kind of like keyless entry for a car is how I view it. And now we've entered the tower. You may notice that 2 of my characters have died to the mutant died to the Sword King fight, and my Oni just got killed by that wolf, and that's actually all planned too as part of the route. Because it's probably a good opportunity to talk about how this game has kind of a pseudo perma-death system where when you have characters die, you can ordinarily only revive them a limited number of times based on a stat called heart. Each character starts with 3 hearts, and you can buy more, but ordinarily if you run out of hearts, then the character is just dead and can't be revived. And kind of the way the game has that pseudo permadeath system, but makes it so that you can't easily get yourself into unwinnable states, is that you can actually replace dead characters at adventurer guilds, like the one where I built my first party, and I'll be doing that. And then also the stats and power levels of the characters you can recruit goes up as you make progress in the game. So I'm going to be kind of abusing that mechanic in order to kind of get my party periodically caught up to where I'm kind of expected to be at in this point in the story. So I'm replacing my Oni and my mutant with 2 humans, immediately taking off their weapons to sell. Do a little bit of shopping here too. So the battle sword is it's an actual weapon, but it's also, for my purposes, a required story item. And I'm gonna buy some, buy and then sell some menu derps, but buy some X potions, which are a nice healing item. And be on my way, because yeah, the reason why I came here, by the way, is that if I'd have kept going and tried to climb to the 6th floor of the tower, I would have actually run into a door that's locked by magic of blue. And in order to unlock that door, I'm going into this kind of more expansive world now to look for the blue sphere to break the seal. You also may be noticing too that I'm now saving the game periodically too, and that's because right before I entered this world, that kind of reached the end of the line as far as my random number generator manipulation route. And because of the pseudo permadeath system, and then also the fact that running away from battles isn't, if you're not doing full manipulation, is not really something you can ever make totally reliable. It just works out to be both faster and a lot more safe and consistent to just make really heavy use of the in-game save system, since you can save anywhere. I mean, this is a Game Boy game made to be played on the go, so they give you the ability to save anywhere. And just by doing that when I'm in areas that have random encounters, I can then just reset if I get into one I can't run from. And if you guessed that our means of crossing the ocean in this world would be our very own mobile floating island, you'd be correct. Again, I love this game for its just weirdness. But yeah, if we were actually talking to NPCs, we'd basically be learning that the blue sphere that we're looking for is held by a dragon named Seiryu, who's in an undersea castle, and our first objective here is to find a way to cross the ocean and then a way to go underwater to find that castle. So we got the island in order to cross the ocean, and then picked up that item called the air seed in order to be able to breathe underwater. So with the air seed in hand, we're heading towards the whirlpool that takes us underwater. If you're wondering how I'm able to reset the game so fast too, if I fail to run, it's just because there's a soft reset built into the game if I press A, B, select, and start at the same time. You can also do that in Final Fantasy Legend 2, but not the 3rd game, which annoyed me a lot when I learned to speedrun that one. Alright, so now that we're actually underwater, which you'll just have to take my word for it, this is a Game Boy game, they can't really do like fancy, or I should say kind of an earlier Game Boy game too, so they can't do any kind of fancy wavy effects to show that you're underwater. We're making our way through some undersea tunnels to get to Seiryu's castle. I see a question about is the run faster to do without mutants? Yes. Mutants can be pretty good, but at least in a run that's not fully manipulated, you'd have no way to guarantee getting good skills for them, just because the way mutants get stronger is it's all by luck, because they randomly gain and lose special abilities after battle. I already talked about monsters. Monsters, you evolve by eating meat dropped by other monsters, and then humans evolve, or, well, quote-unquote, evolve by you buying potions that raise their stats at item shops. That was actually something I could have done at the item shop in this town, as far as buying some potions to give my newly recruited humans more HP, but there is eventually going to be a point where I need to get both of them killed off in order to replace them with stronger characters, and I've just found through experience that giving them more HP, while it does make some of the required fights in the mid game a bit safer, it usually ends up just being slower overall, both because of the time to buy and then use the HP potions, and then also makes it slower to get them killed off later. This room right here where the key is actually has an elevated encounter rate, so I'm saving more often in there. Alright, so that key we do need in order to actually get to the boss, and then also to loot his treasury too in our way there. Oops. Yeah, these octopi are kind of like the guards in Sword King's castle, where if I bump into one of them, which I sometimes don't have a lot of control over, I get into an unrunnable fight, which is an instant reset. Back to the key for a second, too. That is one thing I'm a little sad, got kind of lost in translation, because it's called the Blue Dragon Key in the Japanese version, which is a nice reference to the constellation that the main bosses in this game are named after. But it's just called the Blue Key. See a question if this is taxing for my hands. It's actually not. There's pretty much no mashing involved in this game. The text draws out at its fastest speed if I just hold the A button, and then there's a lot of combat options I can buffer too. Alright, so then we make a pit stop in the treasury here to get some grenades. That's another thing I just really love about this game overall, is that you've got a JRPG where you have like knights wielding swords and shields, mutants using like X-Men style powers, basically, monsters breathing fire, and then you can also have characters using grenades, bazookas, dynamite, stuff like that, all peacefully coexisting within the same party, within the same game, and I just love that.
I'm gonna question your use of the word peaceful here.
Well, yeah, I think that's a valid question. Although it's peaceful within my party, I guess, until I kind of manipulate characters getting killed off. Anyway, back to going for the blue sphere. So we're almost to Seiryu's, well, I guess sphere hiding room, I guess we can call it, because we have this little mini puzzle here where we've got a room filled with fake spheres. Yeah, oh yeah, this is totally Sonic the Hedgehog, by the way, too. And
yeah, I don't know any other blue sphere.
But the solution is basically where those two lines in the first two rooms intersect is where the correct sphere is. Alright, so for Seiryu, the second Fiend, I'm using my Slime's Melt command, and then also using those grenades I picked up on the way. Grenades are it's a strong weapon that does good damage and also hits all enemies in a group, although that latter property isn't relevant here because it's a solo target. But I'm just using those, then just hoping that Seiryu doesn't kill the character that has the grenades.
So this is the point at which the manipulation starts not being a thing, I assume.
The manipulation ended actually before I went through the door into the world of Ocean here. Because it's that specific point, because if I kept going on the RNG seed I was on, I would just get into a really bad fight that I couldn't either win or run from fast at all. So if I put some more routing work into it, I might be able to figure out a way past it, but for now I basically just have that be the point where I switch from doing full pseudo-random number generation or manipulation into just saves, in-game save abuse. Alright, so we beat Seiryu, and turns out Seiryu actually didn't have the full blue sphere. He only had half of it, and so in order to get the other half of it, we need to go pay a visit to this Dr. Wily-looking NPC here, who's actually a benevolent dragon in disguise called Ryu-O, which I believe is Dragon King in Japanese. And this is where that battle sword I picked up a bit ago comes in, because he actually gives us a math puzzle where we have to kind of add up the sell price for a bunch of other items he tells us about, and then the combined price is what a battle sword costs. So we just need to have one of those, and then he gives us the other half of the sphere. Did I answer your question about the manipulation route, by the way?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, great. One thing I do really like about this as a speed run too is just that it's short, sweet, comfy, and also fast moving too. So sometimes it's kind of hard to keep up with explaining everything that's going on behind the scenes. Alright, so now that we've used the blue sphere to break the seal, we head back into the tower, and then we need to talk to this mysterious top hat man here in order to actually avoid a soft lock situation near the end of the game. We could have actually... there's many opportunities for us to talk to that mysterious top hat man, starting at the very first town, but in order to actually complete the game without soft locking, I have to talk to him inside the tower at least once, and I'm sure that just the reason is there's some kind of variable that's reused in the game's memory, is because this is a Game Boy game running on limited resource gaming system. So I imagine the programmers didn't think that you'd make it through an entire RPG without talking to a major character at least once. So there's just some kind of variable related to where he is at any given point that if we never actually advance it, makes some bad stuff happen near the end.
So I've got a question in chat asking if you would think that this is a good first RPG to run.
As far as a speed run, I'd say it could be, yeah, because it's got two things that I think are good qualities for kind of a first RPG speed run, in that it's fairly short, as in roughly an hour, and it's also fairly difficult to fail the run too, because you can save anywhere. Because kind of an issue a lot of times, especially when you're getting started with like a multi-hour RPG run, is that you can die and then it's over. But since you can save anywhere, I mean, there are a couple sticky situations you can get into where even with saves, you might still have some difficulty actually beating the game. But by and large, I'd say this could be a good first RPG run. Not really so much with this category, but for just straight any percent that uses a skill called Saw that I should probably explain at some point too. There's actually very, very good notes and videos too by Catclaw, who's the world record holder. It's CATKLAW, I believe is how the name is spelled. But anyway, yeah, this category is any percent no Saw skill. Saw is a skill that certain types of monsters can have, and if I was using it, I would already be doing so by this point, because the first monster that has Saw is called Beetle, and I think you can get that before Seiryu. And then Saw is a skill that was likely intended to let you instantly kill enemies that are weaker than yourself, but there's some bad math and it actually kills enemies that are stronger than you. And that works on bosses and it works on the final boss. So a run that does use the Saw skill is able to trivialize a lot of the combat in this game. I mean, there's a lot more to it too, just because like the monster evolution route in order to kind of have Saw when you need it is pretty elaborate. But I just prefer this no Saw category because I just like how it just shows off a lot more of what the game has to offer, because you use all three of the races that you can play as, and then you get to kind of see the bosses do a bit more too before you throw grenades at them and other things like that. Alright, so I'm just picking up some more grenades to give to my other human, and then I'm just equipping these items, not really because I need to, but just to get them out of my inventory, because you can only hold 7 items at once. And then, so anyway, we need to find another sphere to keep going in the tower, and the backstory of this, the world of skies, that there's the Fiend in this world, Byakko, or Byakko, I just call him Byakko, is kind of ruling the world with an iron fist, and then there's a resistance working against him that used to have a leader, but then that leader was killed, and the resistance kind of fell to the leader's 2 daughters. And since we know that Byakko has the spear, we are kind of trying to get in with him in order to get more information about that. So we go kind of prove our muscle that we're good fighters by beating up a bunch of mosquitoes. I mean, I live in the Midwest. I mean, killing someone that's good at killing mosquitoes instantly earns my respect.
Yeah, that tracks.
And then the last couple beat drops that I made use of too were designed to evolve my Red Bull character into a imp, which has a nice fire breath skill that we'll be making use of right here. You ask a silly question. I like that dialogue. So for this required fight right here, my goal is to kill the saber cat ASAP, just because it's the most dangerous monster, as evidenced by that it just one-shot one of my characters. Fortunately, if that happens, I can just soft reset and try it again. This fight in particular would have benefit from me getting those HP boosting potions for the humans, but like I said, overall, it just makes kind of the run a bit slower overall, so I stopped doing it. And we're hoping to see a saber cat meat drop from this fight, although it's not too likely and it's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen. Okay, we got pea worm meat, which sounds disgusting, so we'll pass on that. Although my personal favorite, not that it's good for the run, but just in concept, is the garlic meat. Like, I just kind of imagine that as being just garlic.
That's delicious.
Alright, so the reason we went to that house, by the way, was to look for Jean, who's one of the Resistance leader's daughters. Their names are Jean and Mireille, although Mireille is English as Millet. And we actually saved her from Byakko's goons. So now we're we're kind of now we're infiltrating Byakko's castle to look for Mireille, who's on the top floor. But because Byakko's army still thinks we're one of them, we're just able to cruise through without any fights. And if we bump into these guards, it's just text box. Yep, in Ven's noting what all of them say. It's very important that Byakko is on the 7th floor. And I did a reset there just to return the NPCs to their starting positions too, because both their movement, speed, and directions are totally random. So if one of them blocks my way, I usually just do a reset to get rid of them rather than try to wait them out. Alright, we're almost to the top. So we have to fight some more saber cats in order to get to rescue Mireille, and this is where we do need to get that meat drop. So if I don't get it, I'm gonna have to reload until I do. It's not too bad though. I mean, getting it even like second or third try is pretty common if I don't get it first. Yeah, this is where having both... Oh, nice, got it first try. This is where having the fire breath and the grenades is very nice, because it lets me just hit all of them in a group. Usually win the fight in 1 or 2 turns. But this is where we find out, though, that Mireille actually betrayed her sister and was working with Byakko all along, and Byakko kind of knew that we were spies and throws us in jail. But because it's an RPG, jails are very, very easy to escape from. All we have to do is bend the bars and we're on our way. Alright, and at this point in the route too, because I used the meat from the saber cat in order to evolve my slime into a jelly, which is pretty much the same thing, only better. And because you have a limit to how many uses you have of skills before you recover them by staying at an inn, I do need to manage my my melt charges very closely at this point. And because I don't actually need one for that imp fight, I actually use the other skill called Bother. Oh, Bother. Which is just an agility debuff. I don't care about the agility, but I'm just using it to conserve melt charges for future fights. Okay, I don't actually need the imp meat, but I do need the key that the imps were guarding. And then 2 of these jet flyers or whatever they are, or gliders, are actually broken. It's only the one on the right that actually works. So we escape from the castle, and then I kind of use a small trick where I actually re-enter the castle, and then leave, and that actually warps me to where to kind of the shrine where the sphere we came the white sphere that we came looking for is. But Byakko, even though Mireille betrayed the resistance to work with Byakko, Byakko isn't a very nice boss and tries to kill her, but then Jean takes the hit instead. Oh, I'm glad my Winnie the Pooh reference wasn't lost. This is another pretty straightforward fight. I'm just spamming my fire breath, grenades, and melt skill to take down Byakko pretty fast. And Byakko, with his dying energy, destroys the spear, but it turns out that the spear he had was a fake, and then Mireille cries a tear for her sister, which then becomes the true white spear. Shoutouts to this music, by the way, too, called Heartful Tears, I believe. It's reused in the next game, too. Okay, just for safety, just for no reset run safety, I'm gonna pop in here and stay at the end. 6 melt charges should be enough, but I don't want to leave anything to chance. So, reason why I prefer not to do that is because after you've defeated Byakko, there's no encounters on the World of Sky overworld, but if you go into a town and come back out, there's encounters again because of reasons. So I prefer to avoid that if I can, but just for no reset run safety, I'm stopping at that end there in order to recover my melt charges. Alright, so you should probably be getting the sense of how this game is structured at this point. I mean, we're climbing the tower looking for paradise, and then about every 5 floors we run into a locked door, and we need to kind of go explore a more expansive side world in order to find a sphere that unlocks the door, and then defeat one of the 4 fiends based on the, I believe they're called the 4 symbols, which are the Chinese mythology monsters. So Byakko was the white tiger. So anybody familiar with the 4 symbols should then know that our next fiend is going to be Suzaku, the red bird. Shoutouts to this game's soundtrack, by the way, too. This is a amazing Nobuo Uematsu chiptune soundtrack. Uematsu only did the full soundtrack to the first game, although a few of the tracks were reused in the sequels too, like the title theme and the victory theme, and then that Heartful Tears track I mentioned. If anybody's just tuning in to wondering why I'm kind of saving and resetting so much, it's because this game has both no kind of guaranteed way to run away from random encounters outside of doing a full manipulation scenario, and there's also a pseudo-perma-death system, so because of both of those, for a lot of the game, it just works out to be faster and more consistent to just make heavy use of the in-game save system to deal with random encounters rather than fail to run away, take damage, have characters die, need to worry about running out of opportunities to revive and heal them. Alright, so we're in the World of Ruins now, not to be confused with the World of Ruin from Final Fantasy VI. And in the Japanese version, it's way more blatant. This is basically post-apocalyptic Tokyo. And this world is also ruled by an Iron Fist, this time by the Red Bird, Suzaku. And Suzaku is actually a random encounter on the overworld, and the only random encounter on the overworld. So we're kind of they kind of. I think it's kind of clever how they use the limited resources of the Game Boy to kind of tell a story in that way too, where they make the only encounter an invincible boss, but you can run away. But the encounter rate is super high, so we want to make use of these kind of old subway tunnels to hide from Suzaku. Alright, so just like the last world, this world also has a resistance. This one's kind of more style. I kind of view being more styled like in Akira, another anime manga of the time, where it's kind of like motorcycle gangs. So we actually just rescued one of the key members of the resistance, Sayaka, I believe her name is, and she introduces us to her brother Socho, who's the leader of the resistance. So because Suzaku is invincible because of having a force field, we need to go build a weapon called Erase 99 in order to destroy that force field and be able to defeat Suzaku and find the red sphere that we need to keep climbing the Tower to Paradise. So Socho gives us a bike, and a nice thing about the bike is it lets us go on top of these ruined building tiles. And on the ruined building tiles, we actually can't get into encounters with Suzaku, so I'm only saving when I'm about to get off of one of them. So I think the encounter rate here is like 64 out of 256, so it's very, very high. Like, realistically, I'm probably going to get an encounter like every 3 or 4 steps if I by average. Alright, so our first destination is this kind of ruined area called Akiba, based on Akihabara in Tokyo. This is where we get a ROM, which is one of the components needed for Erase 99. And then before we head on our way, we're also picking up an item called a Revive, which does what you think it does, lets you revive a dead character. Seeing a question if the TAS is saveless, you can actually do an RTA run of this game saveless if you do full manipulation from start to finish, which is something that's already all routed out for the any percent category that uses the saw skill, but I haven't tried to route out full game manipulation. Oops, wrong guy, for sawless yet. Okay, so this is where I'm going to replace the 2 humans I recruited back in the World of Ocean with a Stone Man and a Chimera. The Stone Man I'm not going to be using for very long. It's basically just kind of a gateway towards a stronger form, and then the Chimera has a really strong attack ability called 3 Heads. Alright, so then I pop into the town of Amayoko, which I believe also based on an area within Tokyo, to get the board, another piece of Erase 99, along with staying at the end to recover my melt charges, and then give my party a big power boost. Full game manipulation, it's one of those things where it's much more difficult to route than to actually execute, because I mean this is a turn-based RPG where you just enter commands in a menu. So I mean, as long as you're just doing the same commands, you get the same results. Let me just ride our motorcycle into the bar now. A little oddity too is that the way manipulation works actually varies depending on what platform you're playing the game on. Like, I'm playing on Super Game Boy 2. The other kind of main way people run this game is on Game Boy Player, which is a GameCube accessory, and then that manipulation works totally differently just because the pseudo-random number generator has a different starting point. Alright, so now that we've gotten most of the components for Erase 99, the only component we're missing now is plutonium. So we're going to go head to the friendly neighborhood nuclear power plant to get some plutonium to give us the 1.21 gigawatts needed to finish Erase 99. We also kind of tried to sneak out without telling Socho and Sayaka, but they had none of that. Talking about the saving for a second, too, it may look like I'm indiscriminately saving and resetting to it. In a lot of cases I am, but because of Catclaw, the world record holder for any percent, has kind of cracked the encounter system pretty thoroughly in this game. He's actually been able to identify patterns for what steps you get encounters on certain maps. And there's some situations where I can kind of recognize which pattern I'm on based on how many steps after a reload I get encounters, and in some cases I can identify that I'm kind of coming up on a a set of like a long set of steps, like 50 or 60, where there's no encounters, and if I catch one of those, then I'll make use of it. All right, second try, Evil Eye meat's pretty good. So I used that to evolve my stone mat into a pudding, which, in addition to being a tasty dessert delicacy, is also the strongest version of the slime family of monsters, has very good health, and does a lot of damage with its melt skill. Alright, so we're at the core of the reactor now. But there's a radiation field between us and the core, but Socho decides to sacrifice himself in order to turn off the field. Alright, so into the core we go. Let me just make sure my health's good. And yeah, that is correct. This game was called Final Fantasy outside Japan, but it's really the first game in the Saga series. Alright, so the Guardian of the Plutonium is a kind of a friend visiting from Final Fantasy I, Warmech. It's called Machine in this game because the Japanese name for Warmech is Death Machine, and this is called Death Machine in the Japanese version of this game too, but they had to shorten it to Machine to fit the English text limits. So I like to view the Warmech fight as kind of the turning point in the speedrun too, where I'm just getting just really strong and able to just kind of start really blitzing through a lot of the boss fights in 2 or 3 turns. Alright, so after getting the plutonium, we get sent back to the base, and if we actually go inside, we find out that while we were at the reactor, Suzaku actually attacked the resistance base, killed pretty much everybody that was there, and then abducted Sayaka and took her to in this version of the game, Skyscraper. In the Japanese version, it's Shinjuku subway station, which is one of the biggest subway stations in Tokyo. I like the music for this too. It really makes you feel like you're kind of racing the clock at this point. Again, Nobuo Uematsu, genius with retro game soundtracks, bar none. This is a pretty kind of strange and maze-like dungeon too. Like it has a lot of required secret passages that you have to go through in order to get to the end, and then there's these dark rooms too, although all but one of them, unfortunately, are pretty straightforward as far as just being just a one-directional escalator. Yeah, for story purposes, I've never quite understood why exactly Suzaku kidnaps Sayaka and takes her here, other than potentially just trying to lure us into a trap because we were the only resistance members that weren't at the base, or I should say that survived his attack on the base. I guess I've also never understood if Suzaku knows about Erase 99 and that we have it or not, but it's not going to matter soon. Making our way through the skyscraper again, just really kind of strangely designed dungeon that I think can be pretty difficult to get through playing this game blind, because again there's just a lot of required secret passages. Like, is it this room? No, it's the next one. Oops. There isn't a no running category, but a run that does full manipulation from start to finish actually ends up fighting most of the random encounters instead of running from them. A full manipulation run also doesn't do any saving and resetting at all, because every time I reload, it actually reinitializes the pseudo random number generator to a unknown state at that point, so that doing a save and reset would break any active manipulation being done. So to do a fully manipulated run, it would have to be done in a single segment. And the fastest run, on at least on Game Boy Player by Cat Claw, which I think is about 54 or 55 minutes, any percent, is single segment. This is a really odd room too, where every tile that's not a wall or a door is a false staircase. Though I also get a cell phone reception meter vibe from this room too. But I know where the real staircase is, so I'm just heading straight there. All right, and then we've reached an abandoned subway car, which again makes more sense if you know that in the Japanese version of this game, Makai Toshi Saga, that this whole dungeon is based on Shinjuku subway station in Tokyo. I just hope getting onto... I've never been to Japan personally, but I just hope that this doesn't mean getting onto a subway requires going through going down a conveyor belt with no lights on. So in one of these future cars here, there's actually a female mutant sitting on one of the benches who's actually an evil eye enemy in disguise. And older routes for this category actually kind of made use of that in order to actually get more puddings, but it was found that one pudding is basically good enough, especially if you have a chimera too. Oh yeah, I'm seeing some references to the Mana series too. I'm a big fan of the zombie subway in the underground city in Secret of Mana. Alright, and we are at the end of the subway car, where Suzaku is holding Sayaka hostage, but we use Erase 99 to break the force field, and then it's time to finally fight Suzaku for real. And again, just because of how strong my monsters are at this point, this is a really fast and simple fight. Suzaku, I believe, has 1500 HP, so this is over in 2 turns. GDQ, you are great. True statement. Alright, and then Sayaka, at her brother's grave, gives us the red sphere that we need to continue up the tower. Alright, so if we'd have actually been talking to more NPCs, especially in like side rooms in the tower, and doing more explanation, we'd be kind of catching wind about now that there's a little more going on than just the 4 fiends kind of terrorizing the side worlds. That the 4 fiends have a boss named Ashura, who goes on to be a recurring character in the Final Fantasy Legend games. I'm a really, really big fan of how Ashura gets progressively demoted as the series goes on, too, just because in this game Ashura is a very major antagonist. In the second game, Final Fantasy Legend 2, Ashura is the kind of the boss of the first major story arc. And then in the third game, Ashura is basically just kind of a lackey for a stronger boss. Alright, so we're just... I mean, our goal is just to go on an adventure to climb this tower and try to find paradise, which is said to be at the top, but we've been getting kind of caught up in side stories as we go, and I'm sure we kind of probably know at this point that we're going to need to fight Ashura at some point in order to get to paradise. Although on this particular floor here, if we when I get to the bottom of this hallway, if I were to go left instead of right, I would actually find a library which has a lot of cryptic books in it that actually imply that even Ashura has a boss too. That Ashura kind of isn't the ultimate power in this world. I forget if it's actually in this version of the game or just the Japanese version too, but there's also some kind of cryptic clues about games too. Like you see like a book that has a list of high scores, and then your name is in it too, although there's no score listed. Alright, so then again, here's that mysterious Top Hat man. I'm pretty sure I talked to him on floor 5 after defeating Seiryu, but I'm going to talk to him again there just to make sure, because of what I'm assuming is just memory variables within the game code being reused. If I make it through the entire game without ever talking to that man in the tower, then I'll get into a soft lock pretty much right after this point. Oh yeah, I agree. If the Final Fantasy series ever does actually end, I have pretty little doubt that it's not going to be planned to end. It's just going to happen because of like lagging sales or something like that. Let me just reorder my party here. So Ashura basically offers to kind of give each of us one of the worlds we got through on our way here to kind of replace the 4 fiends that we defeated, but we're not going to have any of that, so we're going to fight Ashura now. And then I do want Ashura to actually kill off the Chimera and the Jelly, just leaving the Pudding alive. That happened a little faster than I would have liked, so hopefully I'll have enough melts left to win before running out. Oop. Let's try that again. Pretty sure I would have had him too if I'd have gone first on that turn. Because kind of the ideal way I'd like this fight to proceed is for my Chimera and Jelly to get like 1 or 2 attacks each off, and then Ashura uses Flare to one-shot both of them kind of on like the 3rd or 4th turn, because then I'll for sure have enough melt charges left to kill him before I run out. I think I should be good here. Yep, alright, excellent. There's a nastiest trick in this room, by the way, too, where if you step and directly in front of Ashura, there's a hidden pitfall that drops you down to the floor before, so I had to kind of make sure to avoid that. Alright, so we found the door to paradise, but there was a hidden pitfall in front of it that dropped us all the way back down to the base town at the bottom of the tower. And yeah, this is where the game would soft lock if I never actually talked to Top Hat Man. When I go into the tower, instead of actually taking me into the end game, it would take me back to the real first floor of the tower, and I'd be stuck at that point. It's just a really weird kind of soft lock. So this is what I like to kind of call the express elevator to paradise, because we got sent all the way back to the base town, and then pretty much all of the major story NPCs are there too, kind of giving us encouragement. And then we use the power of our 4 spheres to reveal a secret staircase that leads back to paradise. And then, in order to get there, though, we get to refight the 4 fiends. And then for the refight with Genbu, we make use of his meat drop to actually evolve GDQ, my starter character, who's been either dead or dead weight for a while now, into a Beholder, which is a really, really strong monster that has some very useful status ailment inflicting skills. How good is Genbu? I mean, it's one of the best in the game as far as how you can use it to evolve into like top tier monsters. Because again, Beholder is just it's one of the best monsters in the game. One thing I will say is kind of unfortunate about this game, though, especially if you're playing it blind, is that the monster evolution system is very it's not super intuitive. I mean, it's pretty much you either use a guide or you use trial and error to kind of figure out how to evolve into stronger forms. Alright, and then I'm making use of the Beholder's skill, Stone Gaze, in order to dispose of the other Fiend refights, because it works, and it deals with them in one turn, but it also importantly helps me conserve melt charges on my my pudding and gummies, which I need for the final boss. Yes, oh bother. Bother is an attack that lowers an enemy's agility, which is something I don't care about, but I'm doing it so that if one of my slimes goes before the Beholder, that they don't waste a melt charge. Because if that happens too many times, then I might have some issues with the final boss. Yeah, whenever I stream this game, I always get a lot of comments about how it looks like Pokemon. I mean, none of the Final Fantasy Legend games have any kind of direct relationship with Pokemon, I guess, other than just being RPGs on the Game Boy. On a platform like this, I mean, I'm sure there's only so many ways you can draw a kind of a 2D sprite or a tile-based map. But I guess I will give, though, that I mean, a lot of this run has been about kind of recruiting and evolving monsters to do my fighting for me. So I guess there is that similarity too. As an aside, too, another thing I think it's kind of ahead of its time about this game too is the boss fights too. Both that the boss fights have different music from regular battles, and then also that there's that special dissolve animation when you kill a boss too. Like the first Final Fantasy game didn't have that. None of the Dragon Quest games on the NES had that. I guess except for the final boss of Dragon Quest IV, but yeah, you know what I mean.
They hadn't yet figured out mouth-growing technology for this game, though.
Ah, yes, yeah. That is a very good point, that it took 3 Final Fantasy Legend or Saga games in order to kind of really figure out what their target audience wanted, and that's mouths. Because you can kind of measure how powerful and or evil various things are in Final Fantasy Legend 3 by how many mouths they have. Yeah, I'm seeing a mention in chat about the Wonder Swan too. The only I guess there were 2 remakes of this game, although sadly both of them were Japanese only. There was one on a handheld device called the Wonder Swan and then there was a port of that Wonder Swan remake on mobile phones. One thing that does amuse me, though, is that neither of those remakes fixes the saw bug, so the saw can still instantly kill monsters that are stronger than you, even in the remakes of the game. So again, I'm just using Stone Gaze because the Fiend refights aren't immune to being petrified, and then using Bother with my slimes so that they don't waste melt charges if they go before the Beholder. Alright, so that is the resurrected 4 Fiends disposed of. Genbu becoming meat for to evolve GDQ into a Beholder, and then the other 3 being petrified and left behind. Yeah, I still have yet to actually play any Saga games other than the Final Fantasy Legends series. I keep meaning to play, especially like one of the newer Romancing Saga remakes on like PS4 and PC, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. Again, anybody tuning in recently, even though this game is called the Final Fantasy Legend, the Japanese name is Makai Toshi Saga. It was the first game in the Saga series, which the Saga series I kind of like to sum up as saying Final Fantasy II done better as far as being kind of turn-based JRPGs that have just a really kind of quirky and different kind of leveling and advancement system for your characters. But in this game, I think it just actually works a lot better. It makes for a more fun experience, especially once you understand it better. Final Fantasy but weird. That's a good way to put it too, because like I was saying kind of near the start of the game too, I just love how you can have a party in this game that includes a fire-breathing dragon, a human with that has a bazooka, and a mutant that's using X-Men style psychic powers, all peacefully coexisting in the same party. I really love this final screen of the Tower Final Ascent too, where they can't really do like parallax scrolling or any kind of fancier effects like that, but they're able to kind of portray you ascending to the heavens via having the color gradation in the background gradually get darker. Alright, so we go through a door in the clouds at the top of the tower, and we've at last reached the gates to paradise. But there's one last thing that needs to be done, and that's talking to the Top Hat Man who's standing between us and the door, and who apparently lives here. And we actually find out that the Top Hat Man is the creator of our world, and it's way more blatant in the Japanese version where he's called Kami, or God. And we actually find out that all of this was a game, both a video game and a literal game within the world, where the creator created Ashura and the 4 Fiends in order to kind of challenge groups of adventurers to kind of prove their strength to him. So because we're the first people to ever finish the game, the creator offers to let us join him in paradise, but we're not too happy about being kind of used for entertainment like that. So we actually challenge the creator, challenge God to a fight, which back in this time I think was still a fairly original concept, as trite as it later became within JRPGs to fight God. This is one of the main reasons to run this game Solace 2 is actually getting to enjoy a full loop of the final boss theme, which is pretty rockin'. Because if you were using the saw, you would kill him in one hit. And then time, by the way, is when it says creator defeated, so I'll call time about another 2 or 3 turns. And there we go, that's time.
What a fun run. Every time that I get to see you run this, it's just a blast.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I didn't actually play this game growing up, although I knew about it through Nintendo Power and similar stuff. But yeah, since playing it and learning the speedrun, I've just really fallen in love with this game, just because it's just so comfy and it's just so lovably weird and wacky too. And as a RPG speedrun, it's just nice, short and fast moving too. Like the fastest potable category, any percent at a high level is under an hour. And then like my personal best at any percent no saw skill is an hour and 5 minutes, which both of which are pretty short by JRPG speedrunning standards. And then for whatever reason, they actually decided to not have credits in the during the ending for the English part of the game. In the Japanese version, there are actual credits, but instead we just get kind of a nostalgic recap of how we got here. There's just some kind of key moments in the story. So we've got ending's about 4 minutes from defeating the creator until the end. So I guess Tina or anybody in chat, anybody have any final questions or whatever before we wrap this up?
So one that I do have, I've seen a few people asking in chat, and most people aren't broken like me, where the way that you get into speedrunning a game is by looking up the tasks and then working backwards from there. If somebody wanted to start running this game, where should they start looking for some resources on it?
Well, as far as running the any percent category for this game, which does use the saw, and even though the saw is a one-shot ability, there's still a lot to the game as far as the manipulations, either at the start of the game or the full game if you choose to use them, and then the evolution route. That's all still really involved and a lot of fun too. The world record holder, who I always like to give shout outs to when I run this for marathons or events, to Catclaw, CATKLAW, I know has some very good guides on his Twitch page as far as how to do any percent runs of this game. And as far as the manipulation route I was doing for the first 12 minutes of the game, the manipulation for getting the Red Bull meat drop, I was able to adapt from Catclaw's any percent route, and then I kind of did my own thing from there. But yeah, huge shout outs to Catclaw for just kind of cracking so much of the mechanics of this game open for speed gaming. And then also shout outs to Baku0, BAKU_ZERO, who's a Japanese speedrunner that I like to nickname Mr. Saga, because he either has the record or has really good times at all three Final Fantasy Legend or Saga Game Boy games. And I learned a lot from watching his videos too. I was actually the first person to run the English version Final Fantasy Legend, any percent no saw category, but I adapted a lot of the route from Baku0's record on the Japanese version, as far as the the evolution route for monsters and the boss strats and other stuff like that. So yeah, I guess that was kind of a long-winded way of saying that yeah, if this game looks interesting and anybody wants to try it out, I would recommend just looking at one of Catclaw's guides. I guess one thing just to keep in mind, though, is that if you want to do any kind of manipulation in this game, that manipulation is dependent on the platform that you play the game on. Like I'm playing this on Super Game Boy 2, which is a cartridge you plug into a Super Nintendo console, then you plug a Game Boy cart into that cart, so it's just kind of an adapter that lets you play Game Boy and certain Game Boy Color games on original hardware via Super Nintendo console. And there's also the Game Boy Player, which is an add-on for the GameCube. And then there's also emulators, which are generally based on the original Game Boy, so those work kind of differently too. But at least speaking, as far as the Super Game Boy 2 and the Game Boy Player, those have pretty good resources for doing any percent runs of this game.
Awesome. So there you go, everybody in chat who's asked about it. We need to see at least 10 new names show up on the leaderboard. So that's on all of you. Get to it. So
yeah, I mean, it's both a fun run to do and a fun run to watch too. Like it was just kind of watching runs by Baku Zero and Cat Claw and other runners that were one of the main motivations for me to learn it myself for 12-hour challenge last year.
right on. So at this point, just a couple of reminders for everybody who showed up a little bit late. Tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have a new Super Mario Brothers relay. It's going to be on this channel. It's going to be a ton of fun. You're not going to want to miss it. Prize submissions for SGDQ are open, so head on over to gamesdonequick.com for more info on that, dates for everything pertaining to Summer Games Done Quick Online. And then thank you everybody who's cheered, who's subscribed, who's used your Twitch Prime subs. That supports shows like this. All of the hotfix content that you see is all supported by all of those subs, bits. It's really appreciated. And now I am going to pass it over to my my tech runner, who is going to run an ad for us, and we will be right back.